Hi, I'm Michael. Welcome to Beyond the Screenplay, the podcast where each episode we do a conversational deep dive analysis into a film. Today we are talking about Being John Malkovich, the 1999 film written by Charlie Kaufman and directed by Spike Jonze. I'm joined by the Beyond the Screenplay team, Trisha Arand.
Hello, everyone.
Brian Bittner.
Malkovich.
And Alex Calleros.
Malkovich.
All right, so we are here. We are in our week 4 of our Fall Favorites season. This season, as we've been doing, we're talking about some of the movies that we have each put on our top 10 favorite episodes. You know, we've done episodes on the top 10 of the 70s and 90s, etc. And so each of us have chosen 2 of those movies to turn into episodes, things that we haven't covered yet. And that's what we've been doing. It's been fun. Last week, we talked about Raising Arizona, which was exciting, but not as exciting as next week when we're talking about Labyrinth.
How are you doing, Michael? Are you okay?
I'm great. It's fine. I'm making it through this season just fine. Today, however, we're talking about Being John Malkovich, which was chosen by Alex. So, Alex, tell us about Being John Malkovich.
Yeah, man, I love this movie. It was one of those things where we've done these top 10 of the decades lists. This one was top 10 of the 1999 list because there's so many good movies from this year. And this was on that list for me. And I was worried that, I haven't watched it for a while. Am I going to watch it and be like, oh, shoot, like it's not as good as I remember, or it's a little slow, or it's a little It's like, no, this movie is great. I love this movie. I love its sense of humor. I love just how many layers of humor are happening in every moment. There's this Charlie Kaufman genius at work here. The pace is like breakneck. We were talking off mic about just every scene is like a great short scene and then moves on to the next scene. We don't have this kind of long, I don't know, it feels like both in TV and film right now, we're kind of taking our time when we don't have to. And this movie does not waste a second. I feel like this movie is just jam-packed with comedy and ideas and bizarre twists and turns that feel thematically right. I don't know. There's something also very tight about this movie for being so loosey-goosey in its ideas and its world and kind of the magic of the world. There's something really coherent about it to me as far as, the themes, the characters, the through lines for all of them, the setups and payoffs. It all feels really well constructed for being a movie that I was worried to revisit in some ways of like, does it actually hold together? Is it a little too just like everything, everywhere, all at once? Is it going to feel that way, the way that some other, more latter day Kaufman movies have felt to me, where it's like, am I enjoying myself watching this? It's very interesting maybe, but I'm not enjoying it. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I love the performances. And I think really what it comes down to, and this mileage may vary, there is just a sensibility, comedic sensibility in this movie that just hits me exactly right. And we can explore and talk about that and analyze that. But I am laughing throughout this movie, and it tickles the super clever, funny bone that only Kaufman can tickle. And then, of course, Spike Jonze is just having the time of his life directing this movie. So, yeah. I love it.
Nice. Yeah. Going into rewatching this, I was bracing myself because my memory of this movie is drab, sad people being weird for 2 hours. It's been a long time since I had seen it. And so I went into it really not ready to give it a chance. I had decided I was going to dislike it. And even my first note is like, I hate puppets. So that was my mental state in the beginning.
Well, good thing that's the only puppets we're dealing with this season.
It's the only puppets we're dealing with here. And then I just kept laughing despite myself and really enjoying myself despite myself. And by the end, I was like, this is a good movie and I like this movie.
Yes! We got him.
We got him.
I think it was the I forget his name, but the old guy who thinks he has a speech impediment.
Lester.
Like all of that was just, how did you come up with that? And how are you executing it this masterfully? Why is this just the funniest thing I've ever encountered in my life? And like you were saying, the filmmaking is like totally turned up to 11, knows what it's trying to do with every scene, and has this like strange confidence that somehow makes this bizarreness okay. The running gags, the physical, like, I just love that the ceiling is too low. And it's like, it's funny at first and weird. And then it's ever present. And so at any given time, in any given scene, your brain is like, oh my God, the ceiling is still low. Look at that. And so, it's really funny. It's really interesting. Where it takes the characters, it feels very relevant and modern in a lot of ways. And it's talking about sexuality and identity and all these things. Surprise David Fincher happens. So
yeah, I love that cameo.
There was a lot in this movie that I didn't appreciate or didn't remember or had written off or something, that this time around I was like, I enjoyed it. The third act is weird. And I want to talk about it a little bit because I feel like that's maybe where something felt different, or there's some kind of shift that happens that I wasn't sure exactly how I felt about, but it was still super fun and I loved it and it was great. So I enjoyed it. Trisha, tell me about being John Malkovich.
Sure. So I had seen this movie, but remembered almost nothing about it. I remember there's a tiny door. I remember you go inside John Malkovich and then you get spit out by the side of the New Jersey Turnpike. I remembered a few of the like goofy gags. Something about Maxine, Catherine Keener's performance to me is just like, it's so strong and singular, and like nobody has ever played that character before or since. Like that character is just... Right. I read that she was nominated for an Oscar for this. Like she was the only Oscar acting nomination for this. It's brilliant. But yeah, I remembered some of those things. And then watching it again, I was like, oh my God. What the hell is this? It's so good. Like, I don't know. It's just so good. The pace is, as you were talking about, Alex, is wild. We did a whole video about Groundhog Day and like exploiting the premise, right? Where it's like, if you have a killer premise, you can't just like take it easy or slow. If you have like a very interesting, high concept, weird premise like Groundhog Day and being John Malkovich, then you gotta like immediately get on to the next implication and the next implication and the next implication. I love that he goes to Maxine and he's like, I was just inside of John Malkovich for 15 minutes and it was wild and amazing. And she was like, we're gonna sell tickets. Like immediately, immediately. There's like, it just moves so quickly to the next thing and the next thing. And it feels like this sort of weird allegory, satire, its own universe. Obviously, this is not our universe, but the way that it flirts with and plays with our universe, it's just delightful, right? Like Malkovich is perfect, like as a choice for the actor that they decide to go into. And
brilliant. Like, so brilliant. Everything about it.
I just am so impressed by it on rewatch, and what a delight. It's so good.
Yeah, I feel like this is maybe the strongest example of, like you were saying, taking the premise all the way, where just like Malkovich goes into Malkovich, because of course, like, because that has to happen. And it's a very clear example of what that means and what that can look like. And it's delightful. Brian, tell me about being John Malkovich.
Well, because you just mentioned that moment, I have to share that my friend Steve, during 1999, he would come home from college when I was a senior in high school, and he'd be like, hey, have you seen Fight Club? No, we're going to go see Fight Club. And we'd go at like 10:30 at night. Hey, have you seen the Messenger, the Luc Besson, Mila Jovovich, Joan of Arc movie? No, or we're going to go. Have you seen Being John Malkovich? No, or we're going to go. So we went and saw this, and I loved it. And then I think a few days later, we were talking to our friend Ben, and he hadn't seen it, so we took him. So now, we're incepting, paying it forward to see this movie. And when Malkovich is about to go through the door, someone near us in the theater just kind of said loud enough that we could hear, like, well, how's he going to go through his own head? And then Ben, who hadn't seen the movie before, goes, why don't you wait and find out? And then seconds later, Craig on screen goes, what happens when a man goes through his own portal? And Ben goes, why don't you wait and find out? It's just brilliant comic timing for something he had no idea was coming. So that's my early memory of this movie. But yes, this is an absolute all-timer for me. Top 10 for sure, which is crazy that it was number 3 on my 1999 list, because what is that year?
Right.
But yeah, no, like Alex was saying, it's so funny. Like I've seen it so many times, and I was watching it this time around, just laughing out loud like every 5 minutes. I was like, so like just the way that the dialogue is constructed to be like, we know this is an insane thing no person would ever say, but that's kind of what makes this line funny, right? Especially with Lester, like the way that he has these kind of like really funny, intricate, my body, me, nubile, next to, what I mean? Like it's like he's like rehearsed this or something, right?
Just need to quickly shout out Orson Bean here, who I know and love from Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman.
Oh my God.
Where he plays Jane Seymour's kindly father on that TV show. And yes, he's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. But then the other side of the coin for me is there is this sadness to this movie, both in the Kaufman-ness of it, but also the score. And there's just this underlying mood underneath everything that just to me is like, I'm feeling sometimes both emotions, but always one or the other. I'm either laughing or I'm feeling like kind of that emotional gut punch thing. And then the thematic thing here is, like you were saying, Alex, it always feels like it's doing something. It always feels like it's kind of asking or answering a question. The weird little side jokes all turn out to be setups for something that's going to get paid off later, and then in that final moment, like I just feel like, oh man, like you're waiting till the final like seconds of the movie to kind of like close that thematic thread in a way that just works so well. So yeah, I think that's kind of like we're talking about with, we were talking about David Lynch, we're talking about Coen brothers, just like filmmakers who do kind of everything that I want, which is like entertain me, make me feel some feelings, and then also make me just kind of want to chew on what your movie was trying to talk about when it's over, and want to come back and want to keep thinking about it. So yeah, it holds up really, really well for me. So I'm glad we're here. Finally.
Yeah. In some ways, it feels modern, and maybe it's just because like we're still humans. I don't know. I'm still struggling with these similar things, but also, it reminded me of Get Out a lot, which probably
Get Out 100% takes inspiration from this movie,
right? Which it was so obvious going and rewatching this of like, and then it was like, oh, Catherine Keener, cool, good casting. Yeah, there's just something about this. The tone and this world that's constructed, and kind of like we're saying, this Kaufman-esque marriage of depression and absurdity, and just like pessimism, but like also like a love for life. I don't know. There's just like these weird kind of opposites that somehow get paired in this way that feels effortless and feels really real, despite being so surreal. And I feel like there are very few movies that like can do that this well. And it's almost surprising to me that more people aren't talking about this and wanting to revisit this, because it does feel singular to me, and being able to hold one without getting bogged down by either one at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it came out on October 29th, 1999, which was like yesterday, right?
When we're
like
recording,
we're recording this. Yeah, from when we're recording this. So there is something that feels like
yesterday plus 25 years.
Plus 25 years. So but there's something that feels present about it. I agree. And, I was thinking exactly about what you said, where it's really sad, right? Like at its heart, the story of Craig, the John Cusack character, is a downfall arc. Like it's a really chartable downfall arc, like a beat by beat. And, the conclusion of the movie, which is where he is now trapped in the vessel that will never have control of, right? Because we see the setup for that, earlier with the Lester character. And he's still so desperate for the attention that he's been, trying to get the whole movie. And this is where it's led him. It's really tragic. And yet it's still so funny most of the time. I do think it's interesting that there are quite a few arcs. They're kind of for the three central characters. There really are kind of individual arcs, which is really impressive, weaving them together. But still, I think you pick, Craig is the main character in that essentially his actions are the ones driving the plot, particularly in the first act. And then, his is a downfall arc, and he's pretty pathetic all along. like there's nothing really that likable about him other than his foolish, pure belief that puppeteering is art.
Right.
Which, sorry, not to slander puppeteers. Sorry, I the Bob Baker Marionette Theater is...
We almost went there for Halloween.
A real presence in my life, being someone who has kids. And anyway, what they do is very, very brilliant. But we all know that Craig's puppeteering is not serving the same function for him that it does for a lot of other people. But
yeah, I mean, Craig is willing to cheat on his wife, 16 minutes into this movie or something. They very quickly are just kind of doing, it's not full Nightcrawler, but neither is it sort of we're going to make you love this, or maybe it's something like High Fidelity, where John Cusack is kind of a likable character until they start to pull the thread out a little bit. And you're like, oh no, maybe I'm not quite on this guy's side. They're just this guy is just a normal kind of crappy person, but they want something. So you as your protagonist brain is going to make you, at least, if not root for them, be compelled to watch them try to get the thing that they want.
And what they want is relatable, right?
Right.
We see the way that he's treated by people, and it's like he's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
This movie's so brilliant because what kind of artist would fit into a movie in which he eventually needs to puppet somebody's body?
Right.
He's a puppeteer. It's really duh and obvious, but the movie takes the care and the time in the first act to establish this is a universe in which there is a superstar puppeteer he's envious of that has a giant bridge-sized puppet that's a spectacle.
Emily Dickinson.
Yeah, I love that this is the Kaufman brilliance. He's decided, you know what? This makes sense for the story, so I'm going to make a world in which there is a starving artist puppeteer who's jealous of the blockbuster puppeteer, and that's the world we're in. And then the way his art, the scene where he gets punched by the little girl's father, just because he has just no conception of what anybody actually wants from puppeteering. He's doing a sexually charged, nun and priest.
Medieval
longing scene. I think it's that sense of humor of I've found this thematically perfect role for this artist, but I'm now going to exploit the absurdity of that and just for great laughs throughout the whole movie. But then also it serves this important function in the movie, which is he does have a superpower, which allows him to be the only person who can control Malkovich and can take us into the third act. Everything in the movie is both those things. It's both, this actually is a really important thing we need for the story to work and to go where it needs to go. And also we're going to play it for laughs and find the absurdity in it and just make it a really fun ride the whole time. It's nothing is ever treated with too much seriousness or preciousness. Everything is looked at through this lens of comedy.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, 99 for whatever reason was the year of board office worker, decides to look at their life a different way, which was Fight Club and The Matrix and Office Space and American Beauty. And in most of those movies, we don't even really know what they do. They just work in an office, or we get some kind of sense of what they do, but it doesn't actually matter to the movie, which is kind of the point in those movies, is that it doesn't matter, right? But yeah, I like here that his job before the job, his passion, his thing, is actually something that means something within the thematic tapestry of the movie.
The moment that he's looking through the newspaper for jobs and he looks down through the P's and then he sees that there's no puppeteer and he's like, true disappointment.
All right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's something with the puppeteering thing. almost allows the movie to be self-deprecating without being annoying and like too much of a sad sack, because I feel like it is poking fun at artist things and this sort of, but my art is important and the world just doesn't understand, and like if I could just get them to appreciate how genius I am, right? And I like that the movie does that through allegory. There's this level of abstraction that lets it still be relatable, kind of like you were saying, Brian. Like, I understand what this person wants and I've felt this emotion, but also I can look at this person and be like, this is never going to happen. You're insane. And I feel like that's kind of throughout somehow what this movie is doing, for me anyways. It's keeping enough abstraction or like artifice goofiness that I'm not like annoyed or putting up defenses to it, but it's also not going so far. It is absurd. I'm trying to find the right words where like you said, this movie plays it for laughs, but there's a way to play it for a laugh that's like, look, audience, this is a joke. Aren't you going to laugh at this joke? And it never does that.
Yes.
It's like exactly in this like perfect zone of making the thing hilarious without saying, hey, everybody, look at this funny thing we're about to do.
There's this perfect balancing act calibration that's happening with, I think, the performances as well. Because the characters in this world treat this world seriously. And, when we're laughing because of the absurd situation, they don't think of it as absurd. Like, they're taking the situation with Malkovich very seriously, and the emotions they're feeling with this three-way, mediated by Malkovich relationship are deep, intense feelings. Nobody's stopping to be like, isn't this kind of ridiculous? Like, they are in it. There's something about nailing the performances and the way everybody's treating the situations that allows us to both laugh at it, but the movie never feels, like you're saying, Michael, like it's in that cloying way, like almost like asking us, please, I'm funny. Look, I'm funny. It's like, it's hilarious and funny, but it's because I'm doing that work to see the irony, see the mismatch, and that comedy's kind of happening in my head. The movie's not telling me to laugh. Like, I'm finding the humor. And there's something really satisfying about an entire movie that stays in that lane.
Right. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it before, but it's making me think about what television was doing during this time, which was up until the 90s, we had sitcom, laugh track, here was the joke. The actors are going to stand there awkwardly while the audience laughs, and then they're going to say the next line, right? And then what we had in the early 2000s was Arrested Development and the British Office, then the American Office, which was doing this single camera, no laugh track kind of thing where the jokes are going to be sometimes just spitfire. Like, you have to be paying attention to realize there even was a joke. And a lot of those shows were ahead of their time because people weren't necessarily ready. Like, what is this? This isn't what I'm used to. I'm used to the show telling me when to laugh. Charlie Kaufman worked on a bunch of comedy shows in the 90s, a lot of which weren't like the big standout sitcoms that we know of. There were shows that were kind of forgotten and everything, but I think that that's kind of what he and the other people around him were doing at that time, was trying to find what that next step is in the comedy world. So I hadn't really considered that Being John Malkovich, which is both his first movie and Spike Jonze's first movie, is a sort of like through line coming from what television was doing during that time.
And to your point about the absurdity, Alex, I think the 7.5 floor actually is really important for all of this. A, because it's super hilarious, but it primes us for weirdness, right? Like, if you can get on board and sort of wrap your mind around the 7.5 floor and like just accept that scenes are going to take place in the bizarreness of this. I was reading Roger Ebert's review of this from 1999, which he gave it a perfect 4 stars. He absolutely loved this movie. He called it the best movie of 1999, which is saying a lot.
Wow.
But anyway, he was just talking about how, like, in another movie, The 7.5 Floor would be like its own big idea that's treated like a big idea. That's like, stop and look at this thing, and we're going to make a whole bunch of funny stuff just about this one thing. Like, it's an SNL sketch, right? Like a Monty Python sketch that you could do 10 minutes around if he really wanted to. But the movie just, he gets on the elevator. He can't figure out how he's going to get to the 7.5 floor. Octavia Spencer walks in.
Yes.
And she's like,
She's like, I'll be important later. Not in this movie, just in life.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you need some help? I got you. And it's so grounded, right? Like, it's just the most ordinary thing. And then she like stops the elevator. She grabs the crowbar that's there for the purpose. You see the dents in the door where it's been pried open over and over again. And then, he walks out into the 7.5 floor, stoops out, and it's just normal. Like, it's business as usual. Everyone just acting incredibly normal. And then, of course, he gets to the secretary who can't understand anything that he's saying, which is so funny. But again, the movie presents you with this locale, which I've talked about locales a lot on the show, but it gives you this locale that is singular. Things happen here that could not possibly happen anywhere else, but it doesn't like wave its banners about it. It's just like, okay, and then we're in this weird space. Weird things are going to happen here. So when he pulls that filing cabinet out and there's a tiny door there, you're ready for anything.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just so brilliantly done. There's no mist. There's no oracles. There's no magic happening. It's an office, but it's the 7.5 floor. So it's liminal space nonetheless.
Right.
There's not even like a music cue or something that's like, ooh, some magic happened, which some of those Groundhog Day type movies do. Like there's just like, we're not going to show you some being who's controlling all this, but we are going to do a little like, even Home Alone does this. We talked about that, right? Like there's that sort of sense of like some magic is happening out in the world, and that movie should feel that way, right? But yeah, I totally agree with you. This movie gets away with just suddenly going into supernatural land by just being like, we weren't a normal movie before this. So like, this isn't that weird.
Yeah.
And I feel like it serves to put you into the headspace of the protagonist. Maybe this is reaching, but I do feel like he feels out of place in a world where everyone else seems to think things are normal and fine, or just like this sort of like, why am I not doing it right? Why am I missing something in life? And so coming into this 7.5 floor where everyone else is just like, office worker closing, and you got the janitor people like it's just normal. And he sees it as like a little weird, right? Like it's not like he doesn't notice that this like something's out of step, but the fact that no one else is like bothered by it, I feel like also helps put us in alignment with him of like he's the one that's wrong. I'm the one that's wrong, I guess, because I think this floor is weird. Interesting. And so I just think that that's doing this like character narrative thematic work on top of setting the world, setting the tone and the mood and all of these things.
Related but different points, I was just thinking about how other characters, and this is part of actually how the storytelling is so efficient in this movie, other characters very quickly jump on board with absurd concepts. And my favorite first example of that, when he tells Maxine about the door, she's immediately just like, let's charge tickets, let's sell it. When he tells Lottie, there's a jump cut, which I love. You have the sense that like, hey, he's about to reveal to her this insane thing that nobody could ever possibly believe. They cut to them driving in the car, and the first thing she says indicates she's already completely accepted it immediately and is on to like deeper questions of like, how does this mechanism work? And like, I don't understand how this works. But there's something really fun about how Kaufman just skips over these otherwise obligatory scenes that we all really don't need of, okay, it's such an absurd magical thing. Here's the scene where he convinces his wife that it's real. Here's the scene where he convinces Maxine that it's real. And he has to show her, and she has to like feel it out and get see the proof. It's just really a delight that this movie just skips all of those things and then plays the skip for laughs in both cases. So, Maxine immediately jumping to the, capitalism idea, and Lottie just already being fascinated and kind of intrigued by it. But we skip all of the disbelief part. It works both pacing wise and then also works as just comedy.
And it again reminds me of Groundhog Day, where like, as it starts to get into the second act of that movie, we're just skipping forward and forward and forward more and more quickly because it's just smart to cut past things like that we don't need and get to the next implication of the premise. Because once we, the audience, have accepted it, and often we do that by cues from other characters, right? Like when Maxine, we see her on board so quickly that we're just like, yeah, everyone should get on board this quickly. I'm here, Maxine's here, we're all ready to move on. What's the next thing? And I think it's just brilliant the way that the movie moves on. I will say quickly, the Dodgers just won the World Series here in Los Angeles on the night that we're recording this. And so it might get a little bit celebratory in terms of background sounds. My neighbors are very into fireworks and they're huge Dodgers fans. So
and I live about a quarter mile from Dodger Stadium. So
also go Dodgers. Yay.
Yay. We did the baseball. So I feel like this is a really good example. There's the phrase when writing a scene, get in as late as possible and get out as early as possible. But you need more to really understand what that means. And I feel like this movie is a great example of the right way to do it, where like you guys were saying, we're skipping the obligatory, I gotta linearly connect the dots and watch people go from here to there, etc. It's skipping to the part where it's talking about why this matters to the characters and what they feel about the thing. So like you were saying, Alex, we're in the car with Lottie and she's excited. And so that's what I'm hooked into. It's like, oh, interesting. There's something about this that's like exciting to her and speaks to her. I wonder what that is. Like it's skipping to the character moments where the characters are undergoing change and something's pushing them forward. And I think that's like a really good example of the get in late, get out early. It's like figure out the important part, skip to that, and then skip to the next important part and just keep that going.
Right. Yeah, the two examples of that I think were interesting to me were when Craig and Lottie are at Lester's for dinner, and the first line is Lester saying, "Tell me, Lottie, can you understand anything I'm saying?" Which is just like we've already gotten there. We've already settled into this, and then now the first line is in response to something that was said before we saw it, which means when she repeats it, we're not hearing something we've already heard, which is just nice functionally in terms of just being like we're not going to repeat stuff. But I think the one that's so effective in terms of getting out early is when Craig meets Maxine at the Stuck Pig for a drink, and there's so much tension built up over this scene of like, is he gonna get the date, and then is he going to get like there in time? He's with Lester, who's like still talking about his nubile body, and then like it's almost 7 now. He's running and he gets there, and then that scene is like 30 to 40 seconds long, and then he's like, "I'm a puppeteer," and she goes, "Check," and then it just cuts to like he's at home with Lottie for dinner, and it's so effective because it's, again, as you were saying, Alex, it's done for comedy's sake, that like this scene, almost that bathos thing we've talked about before, this scene that was built up just doesn't actually matter. But also we've gotten everything we need from that scene, which was like he shot his shot, and then we're moving on, and then we'll come back to them later. But that's all we get for now of their question mark relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the discipline to know that's all you need. Like I feel like there would be a temptation to make that scene longer and really indulge in it. But like, that's all you need. Like you've told the story. Now you move on to the next part where you're telling the story. And I feel like that's why, weirdly in my brain, this movie was kind of slow paced, but I think I was really just thinking about him performing puppetry on the corner for a child. But because the rest of the movie, like we're saying, does have this momentum, and it's because it's just jumping to the next turning point in the story. And I think that takes like some bravery also and confidence / ignorance to like know you can just do that and just go for it and know the right things to be focusing on as you're doing that jumping.
Yeah, it's a great example of just great editing. Like when you see a movie that flows like this, because there's a version of this that feels kind of haphazard or jarring. We've all seen movies, some Christopher Nolan movies maybe recently, where it's, the editing is moving fast and we are jumping in and out of scenes, but it's maybe not at the right time, or it's too early, or like this scene wasn't actually finished, but we're finishing the sentence in this other scene for some reason. And this this example of jumping from scene to scene just feels really, like you said, Michael, very confident and impressive, because we did get a scene. We are going out on the high note, and we're jumping into the next scene in a way that almost kind of connects the thought or is a counterpoint to the end of that scene. And it's a really beautifully cut movie in that way. Everything flows in that, like the end of this and the beginning of this go together in maybe not an obvious way. And it's really, you never get off the ride. Like you're always on board. You're never being kicked off the bucking bronco.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say another thing that I love that makes all of this possible is that the rules of the portal are established so quickly and never questioned. Right? Like, it's just like, I was inside of Malkovich for 15 minutes, and then I was spit out by the side of the New Jersey Turnpike. And like, none of that is ever questioned. It's never questioned. And in another movie, you would spend 15 minutes at least testing the boundaries of like, how long can I be in Malkovich? Like, can he hear me? Can he sense me in here? Like, what are the parameters of this? Could I be spat out somewhere else? What, like thinking again about Groundhog Day, where he's trying to get out of it for a good chunk of time. No one is trying to get out of this. No one is trying to break or bend the rules at the outset. They save the fun and games for other things, right? After they've decided to sell tickets, after they've told Lottie, now Lottie is really into it. Now Lottie is really into Maxine. The fun and games are doing other things instead of testing the magical rules of the premise. And that's a wise use of time, because again, when you spend your time that way, you have space for 3 whole character arcs. Mm-hmm. When you're not spending time on the premise and the rules, then you're spending the time on the character beats and all the different ways they're angling to get what they want. And that's more fun to watch anyway than it is to watch somebody like try to stay in Malkovich for an extra 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, the movie knows when the scene is over. An aspiring filmmaker could hear us saying these things and be like, oh, maybe I should just try cutting out of my scene earlier. But it's not as simple as that. It's that the scene has been designed with the knowledge of when the scene is over. Right. So like you know what it means. And it's, as you're saying also, Trisha, like the focus isn't on the absurdity of the premise or trying to figure out like, how did this happen? What's going on with this Malkovich thing? The focus is, how is this going to change the characters? Yes. And every scene is about, how is this going to change the characters? And so as soon as you've told the story of how is this going to change the characters, that scene is over. And it takes a lot of work and thinking and discipline to arrive at that kind of level of understanding of the story that you're telling.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of, as you just said, Trisha, 3 whole character arcs, like I love that Lottie has so much agency in this movie and is actually like a real character, where she could just be the spouse of the protagonist who is there to sort of cause conflict and there to like get hurt at some point or whatever. And then she ends up like really taking control, and some major things happen in this movie when she is actually the driving force, literally driving Malkovich in some cases. Then at the end of the movie, like we are rooting for, if we're rooting for anybody, we're rooting for her and by proxy Maxine, but really Lottie. And I don't think I had appreciated before, or really thought about before, maybe I should say, just like how Lottie is this character who almost seems in the first act like she's not going to be there for anything, and then becomes like a huge force throughout the movie. Also, Cameron Diaz is like awesome in this role, and
so good.
We have to talk about these performances.
Absolutely.
I feel like there are actors who I just kind of in the past had assumed were they do their one thing, like they this is why you cast that actor, to do their one thing that they do, and then they always show up in some movie and you go, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. And this movie may have been that for both John Cusack and Cameron Diaz, I'm not sure, but 100% for Cameron Diaz.
I love this performance. I think it's so, all the characters, maybe except for Catherine Keener in her own way, is like doing this, like you said, Trisha, like nobody has ever been this character like before or after, but that's what's also amazing about it. But Cameron Diaz's character is so recognizable to me in some ways. There's this core of that character of, somebody who has too much to give, or like is a little too self-sacrificing. Like, you're living kind of in filth with all these animals. This is insane. You also want a baby on top of this. Like you have like too big a heart, and it's kind of bad. And I love how much she hooks into the core of that character and plays that kind of the innocence, but also the intensity of someone who feels that deeply. And then, yeah, Catherine Keener's character, like this movie created this archetype of kind of this femme fatale mean girl thing that she's doing that I've always like kind of wanted to like somehow recreate in some of my own like short films and stuff, because there's something that's so fun about it. Like it's not like anything else. I don't know how to describe where she lands with this character, but her mannerisms, her line delivery, it always kind of keeps you on your toes. You're not quite sure how she's going to do it next, but it always does ultimately feel like part of a whole. And then John Cusack as well. Like, I just think like making him all, greased up, or however you describe his look, like just like he is so wonderfully pathetic in this movie. And then I think maybe most of all, John Malkovich. Like what an amazing thing that they got him to do this movie. And
it's like you almost forget that he's actually an actor in this movie because of what his character is. Yeah.
Like how down he was for this movie. I just so appreciate it. And I love how, in the same way that everything else this movie is both being played seriously and for laughs, just him being down and Charlie Kaufman getting it and Spike Jonze getting it, like the exact type of actor he is and where he falls in kind of like, the Hollywood star spectrum and the types of roles he gets, and just making a meal out of like exactly what he is. Like we said, the premise of the magical doorway is taken to its furthest extent. And I think the premise of you get to make a movie about a real actor, John Malkovich, what can you do with that for laughs and for drama and for everything?
Right.
They do it all. It's so great.
It's like, you're not just going to play an actor who is sniffing someone's panties, or our character is sniffing someone's panties. It's going to be you in your own subconscious who is remembering that you, John Malkovich, should like apparently have done that. I also feel like it's such a perfect. I think the studio at the time was like, why couldn't it be being Tom Cruise? Like, why couldn't you get a bigger actor? And it's like, well, then that doesn't work. Like, that's not kind of the point of it, right? Because then you're going to be doing all these in-jokes, right? Remember this movie? Remember this thing? Remember that? And it's like, I feel like you can actually look at John Malkovich's career, and up until this movie, he was like, someone like Richard Jenkins, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, that guy that I know him from that movie. Or like, oh, maybe he was like kind of a main guy in that movie, but not a lot of people saw that movie. And then after this, he became John Malkovich, the guy that like everyone knows and wants to impersonate, and is like the like fun guy who like shows up in a movie. And it's like this weird thing where this movie is almost like maybe a midpoint in his career of making him be a known thing, because they chose someone who wasn't as well known, which is so meta and weird, and I love it.
And you sort of use the word meta, and I think that's also what's very 1999 about this movie, and also why I love this movie, is just the more you think about it or overthink it, there are so many layers of play here. Because what are actors? Sometimes we joke, kind of the cynical or like not good view of actors by like a filmmaker is like, you're kind of just a puppet that I'm going to like place on my screen and make you do what I need you to do. I care more about the visual effects or what else is happening, but like I need the meat puppet there to do the things. And so there's so many layers here about acting as well. And what does it mean to be an actor, layered on top of the puppeteering, and also like trying to be somebody else. And what does it feel like to be somebody else? I was watching a YouTube analysis. Somebody was pointing out that there's something about the theater experience being explored here. Of we go into this, there's almost like a movie screen shaped view, that we go into Malkovich, and people come out changed. They feel like, wow, I really felt like I was living somebody else's life for a minute, and I'm changed by that. There's just so much going on here that is so meta, and there's just so many layers, because like it's about a real actor and he's playing himself, and I just love it. There's so much.
And it's like early on enough that meta doesn't mean like isn't the reductive, watered down meaning of meta that I feel like it's become kind of like you were talking about, Brian, with just comedy being a little bit ahead of its time. I feel like this is what meta is really supposed to be, like what it's actually going for, as opposed to like, oh, it's a meta, like looked at the camera and winked. Like that's not, yeah. It is interesting. Kind of the last thing I was thinking about Garden State a little bit because we talked about it recently. Also because there's a monologue in this movie where someone uses a term we don't use very much anymore, or we don't use anymore, and he was using it very much. So we talked in our Garden State episode about like the manic pixie dream girl and why it didn't quite work with the Natalie Portman character and the problems that came along with that. And I feel like the Catherine Keener character, Maxine, in some ways is doing a similar thing in terms of like inciting, you know, a desire in the male protagonist and is like, oh, if I can get this thing, it will fix me. But she also is a full three-dimensional character, has agency, has wants. And even like you were saying, Alexis, this character is so larger than life in some ways, but also feels totally grounded. There's like wounds that you get a sense of for her, and that she has an arc and is also trying to find wholeness the way that all the other characters are, and her pursuit of that moves the plot along the same way Lottie's pursuit of that moves the plot along. Like, I'm glad you called that out, Brian, because that's really when I leaned into the movie, actually, narratively, is like, I was assuming, oh, okay, and then he's going to be trying to cheat on his wife, and she's going to be like, hey, you keep coming home late, and that's going to be the whole movie. Right. And instead, it's this totally different thing where she's like, suddenly I feel like I was the person I was supposed to be, and so it's getting into identity. So it's a counterpoint example of why and how to create these supporting cast of characters that can, yes, be there to move the protagonist along, but they also have their own journeys that have meaning, that support the greater meaning of the story and can move the plot along. It's doing all these things at once, hyper efficiently, in a really fun way. Mm-hmm. And it's just extremely impressive.
Yeah. I love the plot turn in the third act, which maybe this will lead us into the third act because we must talk about it. But Catherine Keener's character, Maxine, finds out that it was actually Craig that was inside of Malkovich when last time they had a rendezvous. And she's like, oh, interesting. And then, you know, she gets the information that he's kind of good at it, actually, because he's a puppeteer. So maybe he can do more with this, right? It plants the seed of the next implication of the premise. Like, so far, no one's been able to do anything with Malkovich to their own will, right? They just have to kind of live as him. But maybe there's a possibility here. I love Catherine Keener's performance where she's digesting this information on the phone, right? Lottie's telling her about this. She's like, interesting. No, it's all really confusing. It's just really a confusing situation, right?
Well, I got to go. I'm going to be late for Malkovich.
Yep, anyway, bye. And you can just kind of see where it's going to spin out to. I think that that's all really fascinating. And again, smart writing as it like creates the next knot in the plot that leads you into the third act. But then we get this montage where we discover maybe she and Craig are really happy together, right? Like he does his puppet dance for her in the bedroom and she's like, you're a genius. Like she's actually really into Craig's puppeteering all of a sudden. And like, he's like, I'm going to use Malkovich to launch my puppet career. And she's like, yes, this is brilliant. And then she gets pregnant. I think it's really interesting that, like, we don't find out until later why she starts to pull away from him when she's pregnant, you know, and the TV documentary has noticed that she's no longer into it.
I love the TV documentary.
It's so wild. Everything about it is so wild. Like, yeah, the documentarian, all of this has happened in 8 months.
8 months.
And we're doing like a retrospective, like, and it's only been 8 months.
Right.
And he's like now a professor of puppetry, I guess.
Right. Like teaching at Juilliard or whatever. Like
inside the puppeteer studio.
Yeah, the clip of him berating the student is so good. Yeah.
There's so much to unpack. Like, we could spend so long doing. Anyway, but it's interesting, right? That like Maxine has never gone into Malkovich, as far as we know, and then becomes a vessel herself in her own way, right? And again, there's like another layer to this where it's like there's something wholly herself about her, where of all the characters in the movie, she doesn't want to be someone else. She actually likes being Maxine. And then she decides to keep this baby and is maybe unhappy about it, or there's something dissonant about it to her, or it creates a rift between her and Craig. You know, for a while, we don't really understand why what's going on is what's going on, but the like pregnancy narrative is another one of being a vessel, right? And I just think it's all so smartly done, and like introducing that as the final turn in the third act. And then of course we find out, of course, it's the next vessel she's carrying because it's John Malkovich's kid. I do have logistical questions about how
I think it must be a
work.
family lineage of the
I
Malkoviches.
guess so.
Yeah.
Like it must have been Malkovich's father, I guess, that was the last vessel, or mother or something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, and it makes me really appreciate the pacing, especially of the third act, because I feel like there are a lot of movies. I was just thinking of like Project Mayhem and Fight Club. We just talked about like, you know, the whole thing of Mulholland Drive. Like after that movie kind of reveals itself, there's still like a lot of movie left. Even something like The Godfather, where after the midpoint sequence, it's like now we're in Sicily and there's like new characters and a new love interest. And it's like, oh man. And I love all those movies and I love all those choices in those movies, but there is kind of like a weight to those moments where you're like, oh man, like we're like more than halfway done with this movie, and there's a whole new thing happening now that I've got to like kind of wrap my brain around. Whereas this movie just does it so quickly and in such an entertaining way that it's not like, oh, we have to now like deal with John Malkovich, the Craig-controlled celebrity puppeteer. It's like, no, we're going to do, the documentary is actually really efficient in kind of telling you what has happened during that time. But also, we're going to move through these little beats so quickly that it's not going to feel like, when you're kind of ready for the movie to be over, it's going to kind of go down this whole other detour that just feels kind of exhausting.
I love it's a short but crucial scene in his agent's office where his agent is like, you're a puppeteer now.
Yep.
Cool. It's all good.
That
Great.
scene is so great.
This is it.
It's so funny. Well, and you know, and part of the efficiency of that documentary, like you're saying, is also we're seeing Craig and Maxine watch or not watch it, right? So there's this other layer where we're seeing their relationship to the narrative of their past while we're also getting, and so it's, again, I think a different movie might be tempted to like split those beats up into different things, but it's all happening on top of each other, feeding into it, so there's never a dearth of meaning or something for you to be wondering about as the audience. It's always telling you where the characters are at and how they're reacting to what's happening.
Well, even more than that, it's his 44th birthday, which is it's 44, right? It's the night that he gets locked in forever, I guess. It's the last chance to go into Malkovich. And it's also, we see, because of that, Dr. Lester and Lottie and the group that wants to go into Malkovich they're also watching the documentary, and they're also counting the minutes, and there's this time pressure going on. So it's just, we come in exactly at the right time, not a minute too soon, to basically be there at the height of the character conflict. This isn't dragged out over weeks. It's just one night is all the action in the third act.
Yeah. And again, amateur filmmaker that is getting ready to just cut your scene at the wrong point. It's the scene is designed, it's written such that you can come in at that point. I'm really talking to my younger self when I'm saying these things, just to be clear. So that's why it's coming from.
Yeah, earlier I called out the editing. This is such a well-edited movie, and it is, but it's not that they cut out, you know, I mean, we'll have to look at the script actually to see, you know, what was cut or not. But it feels like the writing was designed for where the cuts happen. It's not arbitrary.
Right.
I love that Maxine is hanging a mobile above the crib, which looks like puppeteer, like strings and everything. So good.
Over the Lottie puppet.
Lottie's in the
Yep.
bed.
Yeah. Right. I still don't like puppets, but well, why don't we go around and say what lessons we're going to take away from being John Malkovich? Alex, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I think I mentioned this in our season announcement. One of the things I love about this movie, and you know, Spike Jonze in general, I think is really good at this, which is using absurd or science fiction scenarios to explore kind of like the edges of human emotion or relationships or situations in a way that you just, if you were doing a grounded in our reality movie, would be harder to access. So, I mean, I think about in Her, you've got this relationship with the Scarlett Johansson computer. And that relationship is explored. It explores these weird emotions and feelings that only come from maybe a long distance relationship or something that like is not literally what's happening in the movie, but it gets at a truth about kind of a hard to put your finger on human emotion. And this movie, it goes into really interesting places with, gender and sexuality and, having feelings for multiple people, but only in certain conditions. Like it uses this premise to really explore these edges of human emotion that are true and real, and like they do arise in our real lived experience, but we can only kind of access them in cinema through a premise like this. And so I just think I've seen other movies that have, like we say, like a magical premise. There's a magical doorway that does the thing. And there's Jim Carrey has a magical power in this movie, whatever. But I think those premises can allow for like an exploration, a poking, a prodding into very strange emotional spaces that are real and are worth kind of exploring. And I think I love that Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman in particular are really great at like finding those zones that are so hard to put your finger on, but are real. So that's my lesson, is do that more often, because that's a great thing that cinema can do for us, is help us feel these things that we otherwise can't really access.
To your point, Alex, one of my favorite little moments, it's like not even a scene, it's a mini scene in the movie, is the one with Elijah the monkey, and where we go into Elijah's brain. Yeah, like we're like being Elijah for a minute.
He gets an arc also in this movie.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
but one thing that Charlie Kaufman I think is interested in, because I saw his movie earlier than this, which was Human Nature, or is it right after? It's right around this time, which also plays with like, aren't people just sad animals in a lot of ways? Or aren't we just like animals in that we are driven by our impulses and we don't understand ourselves and we are subject to our worst desires and driven by all of this stuff. So I think Kaufman is interested in that. I love how it's expressed here, right? Where like to Lottie, Elijah is basically a child, right? Where she's like, I think that Elijah has all this repressed stuff in his past. And like, I've been talking to his psychologist about it. And like, Elijah's going to sleep in our bed tonight and all this stuff. And then it turns out to be Elijah that saves her, right? And like, it turns out we can go into Elijah's brain. Like Elijah's mind is as valid of a place for us, the audience, to visit as John Malkovich's brain is, right? Like, and when we get into Elijah's brain, we realize Elijah also has memories. Elijah also has had experiences that he can draw on. And the clear statement of that scene, albeit a brief scene, is just about the nature of, sentience and personhood. And like, if Elijah is a person in this world, right, are any of the other characters materially different? At the moment that we go into Elijah's brain, we are in a cage with Lottie, who has been stuffed into a cage. The gag of the parrot learning how to say, help, she's putting me in a cage. And then like Lottie saying that and no one listens to her I just love it. Everything about it I love. I just think it's like this bizarre moment, but it's deliberate and thematic and draws attention to the animalistic impulses that everyone is kind of giving into here. And it's right after the crisis point, right? I talked about how this is a downfall arc. And the crisis of a downfall arc is where the central character has a chance to be better. They have a chance not to walk all the way down the dark path. And it's that moment where Lottie and Craig connect. And he's like, I'm not a monster. I'm not. And she's like, I know you're not. I love you. And then he crawls into the cage with her and you think he's going to untie her, but he really just gets her to call Maxine so he can go back into Malkovich. But that's the crisis point for the Craig character. And then immediately from there, we go into the Elijah brain. And he's, basically an animal, but being better than Craig is. And it's a very clear statement about what humans are. And I love that this movie takes the brief moment to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much done with the sort of motif of imprisonment and freedom, with sort of Craig feeling like he is stuck in his own life and he wants to go inhabit. He's like practicing his monologue to Maxine about like, oh yeah, I can go be in someone else's body, right? Which then he literally is able to do. And then he wants to be freed from his life. But then as soon as Lottie says, oh, I may be having this identity thing, he's like, no, that's ridiculous. You'll get over that. He wants to keep he then literally puts her in a cage, right? So he can go in his own interest of his own freedom, can go explore that by imprisoning other people. And then, like you said, because Lottie is the compassionate one and the one who is not trying to put anyone else in a cage, then she is freed by Elijah, who himself has his own backstory of like trying to free his parents. And it's just like, it's not on the nose, but it's also not subtle. It's just there. It's just there all over the place in a way that I think works really well.
It's just good thematic development.
Right.
And good filmmaking.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of leads into what I'm circling around as my lesson is like you're saying, it's good theme and it's good filmmaking. It's using art to get at a truth without being blinded by kind of surface level things that I think it's easy for us to get caught up into. So like something I was thinking about is visual effects and CGI or video games and graphics. There's this pursuit of like, we have to make it like real. We have to get at photorealism because that's where like it really matters. And what I love about a movie like this is kind of what you were saying too, Alex, is like, it's absurd. It's absurd. It doesn't need to be realistic. It doesn't need to be our world. In fact, it not being our world is what lets it get at the truth of what it feels like to live in our world. And I wish more things did that. And I feel like there's also this insight to, I kind of like what you said there, Trish, of like, we're all just like sad animals. I feel like the relationship of comedy and sorrow, I think, is something that is not explored a lot, but I think is there if you look closely at it. And there's this way that this movie uses artifice, absurdity to get at truth. And I feel like that's really what we're all supposed to be doing with storytelling and with filmmaking, with all this stuff. And we can get blinded by the more obvious, accessible things to pursue and improve that are really just the surface level things. But they don't really matter if you're using your tools right to get at the truth of like the human experience underneath.
It's almost like the storytelling is really the thing. Like maybe the screenplay is really what you want to spend your time on.
And it also makes me think just in a totally different way, because you mentioned video games. I was thinking recently about how like video games from the 80s still look awesome. And then video games from like 2008 are all being remastered now because they look terrible, because they were trying so hard to get at this specific, like, look how realistic we can be. And then 15 years later, we're going, that doesn't look realistic at all. But other games are going, no, we were never trying to do that, so we don't have to. And there's sort of, I hadn't made the connection before, but there's sort of a similar thing going on here where it's like, this movie, it's getting at universal truths, but it's not trying to look real. It's not trying to be real. Whereas we get stuck on these things in movies, these plot holes. Well, how come that person did that and then that didn't happen? Oh, why would they do that? Why would they look around there? And And then when a movie can just be this, we've talked about allegory, Poor Things recently, right? Where movies were just like, look, we're not trying, like, we don't want you to be thinking about realism at all. We want you to be thinking about the story we're trying to tell, as you just said, Trisha. We want you to be thinking about these characters and these themes and the story we're trying to tell. We don't care if it is actually like being perfectly held together with every single thread, because that's not as interesting as making people entertained and making people think.
Yeah, and this movie is self-consistent. Like you said, Trisha, it creates rules and it sticks to those rules. It's not willy-nilly. Like it does have boundaries, but the point isn't to explore those boundaries or expand those boundaries. It's what are the humans that happen to be trapped in this what-if set of boundaries? What is their journey? What does this mean to them? What does this unlock in them? And yeah, as you guys were saying, it's like, it's what movies are supposed to be. We go into something else for a little bit and learn something about ourselves and come out the other side changed. And that's cool. And we should do that more. But it's hard, but we should do it more.
Just like going into John Malkovich.
Yep.
Exactly.
Being spat up by the side of the New Jersey Turnpike.
And to bring that home, my lesson is about the ending moment of the movie, where I was thinking weirdly about The Bourne Identity, because, like, I guess this and that movie have actors from Rounders. But like, it was my lesson with one of the Bourne movies, I think it was the first one, was about just the ending moment of all the Bourne movies is just so exciting and cool and fun. And Moby shows up and that just makes you just pumped, right? Oh yeah, the best feelings I had throughout the movie feel like they're all happening right now to me as the credits roll. And I feel like Being John Malkovich is a good example of almost the same thing, but the other side of the coin, which is the final moment of Emily looking at her parents, and the vignette is really narrow, and Craig is saying, look away, look away, look away. And she won't look away because he has no control, right? So again, he has been trying to put other people in cages to free himself. And now he is in the worst possible cage he can be in. And I just feel like it is such a good, it's just like everything I want. No Country for Old Men comes to mind, of just where like the final moment of the movie, when the credits roll, you are stuck in this emotional gut punch that makes you want to just like not move for the next 6 minutes while the credits roll, whether you're at home or in a theater or wherever you are. But then also it feels like the thematic thread hasn't quite been closed yet. And just with its final little beat, the movie is saying, here it is. Here's that last little thing that you need to kind of go off on your own for the next few days and really kind of digest all of this and appreciate it. And I feel like that moment is the moment every single time I watch this movie that makes me go, that's why this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is the previous 114 minutes or whatever, but then it's this final moment that just makes me go, God damn it. You just left me in this place that I can't. American Beauty, we're going to talk about that soon, like similar kind of thing. So I just feel like my lesson is, if you can make the last moment of your movie, I'll tie together the Bourne lesson and this lesson. If you can make the last minute of your movie do the thing you want your movie to do as hard as it's done throughout the rest of the movie, like, you're in really good shape.
I feel like you could play Moby's Extreme Ways at the end of this and it would be equally effective too. Like, that's probably the litmus test. It's like, can you needle drop?
God, now I want to make a YouTube channel where that's all it is just the last minute of every movie, but
Lord of the Rings.
My friends, you bow to no one.
Just want to quickly say, endings are hard if you don't know what your movie's about.
Right.
But if you do know what your movie's about, then the right way to end it will immediately present itself to you. And yes, theme.
What else have you guys been watching? What have you guys been watching recently before we dive in? Like I said, next week we're going to be talking about Labyrinth, which is going to be really exciting and fun. And I'm going to try to be an ally. That's what I'm saying out loud. We'll see if I make it.
Can I say that I'm remembering now that I had someone when I was dating come and stay with me, and we watched I think in the same day, Being John Malkovich and Labyrinth.
Huh.
And after we watched Labyrinth, she went, "That movie was weird." And I was like, "We just watched Being John Malkovich." She's like, "Yeah, but that movie was weird." So yeah,
Okay.
get ready.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. But in the meantime, what else have you guys been watching? Trisha, what have you been watching recently?
Yeah, so it just dropped yesterday, but I just finished the finale of the recent season of Only Murders in the Building.
Oh,
And I had a blast. That show is really consistent for me. It's just a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. I'm not going to lie that not a small part of my enjoyment of it is the meta narrative of Steve Martin and Martin Short are out here making stuff. Not even just movie stuff. They're making TV. And it's pretty damn entertaining TV. And it's great. It's really entertaining. Obviously, they have a lot of guest stars and across the various seasons. And it's always a pretty solid whodunit. And I never have ever really guessed the conclusion, but I'm also not that interested in really solving the crime or guessing the conclusion.
kind of the point of the show is to be there's that way.
Yeah. I was I'm not going to figure this one out, and that's fine. And I'm just here to enjoy it. And I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the most recent season. I'm looking forward to the next one. Only Murders in the Building. Thumbs up from me.
Meryl Streep, just kind of a supporting character,
She's
just showing
fine,
up.
yeah.
It's
It's truly what, this past season, if you don't know, is they have a podcast. And so they their podcast is now being turned into a movie. And so Zach Galifianakis is playing the Martin Short character, and Eugene Levy is playing the Steve Martin character, and Ava Longoria is playing the Selena Gomez character in a movie. And and then all these Hollywood people are in orbit around them. Paul Rudd is there again. He's kind of back from a previous season. And
Molly Shannon.
Molly Shannon is so good in this season. She's so funny. There's an episode with Melissa McCarthy. It's just a lot of great hijinks, but there's heart to it. And it feels like old fashioned TV in some ways, but also smart.
Right.
It's great.
And in the Melissa McCarthy episode, Melissa McCarthy and Meryl Streep get in a physical brawl. And there are moments where I'm there's no stunt people in this shot. They're just jumping over that couch together. It is a delight.
There's a shot like that in the finale with Steve Martin and Martin Short, which I'm sure must be fake, but I'm just I'm here for it.
Nice. Cool. All right. Alex, what have you been watching?
So I think, Michael, I believe you had this as one of my watchings a few weeks ago, but The Penguin. Never in a million years would I have told you that The Penguin would be my favorite show of 2024. I thought that character was fine in the Batman, and I was why Colin Farrell? You could just gotten somebody who looks more like this. What's with this? But then the show kept getting recommended to me. Michael recommended it, so I gave it a shot, and it's really nice to watch. I think it's a limited series, just a really well-written, well-acted, well everything limited series. I mentioned this the other day, I think to Michael, but just oh wow, every scene is a scene. A really good scene. Every scene in this show, people come into the room and they have opposing desires and are trying to get something, and there's lots of tension and subtext and great character acting. And I'm always on the edge of my seat watching these people interact. And
something has changed by the end of the scene.
And something has changed. And the plot is constructed to I'm saying these very basic things that we bring up as lessons on our show constantly. But it's making me realize how starved I was for a show that is consistently episode by episode giving me those things. And it's just reliable and it's good. And I really am enjoying it. Would not have thought that I would enjoyed a limited series crime drama about the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell in a fat suit. But it's not just about the Penguin. There's this great supporting cast, and Kristen Milioti is my new favorite person. She's amazing.
You have to watch Fargo.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I'm really enjoying it. It might be finished by the time this episode comes out. But yeah, wow, what a surprise. And I'm like now studying it as an example of just, this is great TV, great writing.
Very cool.
Real quick, there are like clips that go around of the creators of South Park talking about kind of screenwriting and storytelling and stuff. And they just always sound like they really know what they're talking about. And there was one of Matt Stone talking about streaming. And he's like, I don't really do a lot of streaming stuff, but people keep telling me, like, you got to watch The Mandalorian. You got to watch this. You got to watch it. And he's like, finally, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. And then I watch it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I was missing out. Da da da. And then I get into the second season or whatever, and I'm like, you're wasting my time. Nothing is happening. Like, you've just been episode upon episode of nothing happening. And yeah, it's, I think part of the reason the Penguin feels really refreshing right now is because of everything you just said, where it feels like things are happening. Like, I just watched episode 3, so I'm a few behind, where it's like a character is making a like life choice, and you're kind of going, is this going to happen or not? And you spend the entire episode just kind of hanging on to like whether this thing is going to happen at the end of the episode. And then like another crazy thing happens. It just like always feels like it's moving and doing things that shows don't seem to bother doing these days.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I know, Trisha. I didn't believe it either.
I can't. It's so hard to believe it. Like, it can't be. It can't be good. It can't be. I don't know. It's the Penguin.
I know.
Just watch.
I know.
Just watch and you
Give it a
shall
chance.
see.
Okay.
Brian, what have you been watching recently?
I saw Paris, Texas for the first time.
Oh.
Yeah, which is a Wim Wenders film. And I've seen, I think, like 3 of, I think I saw $1 Million Hotel like 25 years ago. I don't remember that movie. But I've seen now Wings of Desire and Perfect Days and Paris, Texas, all within the past maybe like 3 years. And really loved all of them. Like there is a sort of moody vibes thing that's happening that I love. And there's a really strong thematic thing going through all of these movies. They all seem to be about like lonely men observing the world and kind of trying to figure out how to interface with it. And I think I had in my head that Paris, Texas was like a really bleak movie. And instead it reminded me of like Harold and Maude, where there is a sort of bleakness beneath everything, but then it's really fun on the surface. It's like funny and engaging and kind of it's always moving forward in a way where you're never quite sure where the story's going. It's kind of like a pop song where you're like bopping along to the song and then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh yeah, there's this whole other thing going on that I wasn't really appreciating about this. But yeah, it's like, I don't even want to really talk about what the plot is because I don't think it's like important to know going into the movie. And I feel like I actually appreciated not really knowing where it was going to go from one sequence to the next. But yeah, Harry Dean Stanton, Dean Stockwell, which are both David Lynch bros from my Mulholland Drive people who have followed us from the last episode. And the rest of the cast is great. And it stuck with me. I think it's one of those movies that I'd wanted to see for a while. And then I got to see it in a theater here in LA, which was awesome. But then it's just, I feel like I've thought about it I don't know how many times since I've watched it, and I really want to watch it again. So yeah, Paris, Texas. It's one of those movies that feels like it is not like anything else I've seen, including Wim Wenders' other movies, which I think all of his movies feel like nothing else I've ever seen, including his other movies. So yeah, I really recommend it.
His Ripley adaptation, The American Friend, is one of my favorite Ripley adaptations ever.
I didn't realize he did that. Nice.
He did.
When is that coming back? We're getting another season, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ripley on Netflix? Okay, good.
Michael, what have you been watching?
So I watched Alex Garland's Civil War.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's November. Alex talked about The Apprentice last week, so I'm keeping the moonlight talking about Civil War. And yeah, almost just out of like morbid curiosity and really like talking about being John Malkovich as like that's a thing that movies can be, and holding it up to Civil War, it makes me just like even more like depressed in some ways, because like it feels like if Being John Malkovich is a movie that doesn't care about trying to capture the realness of a world to get at the realness of its meaning and the characters, it's like Civil War is the opposite, where it feels like a lot of work was put into create this artifice of realness to say nothing at all. And it's like to the point where it's really puzzling to me, where I'm like, why did you make this movie? What did you want to say in this? And it's, I don't know, just kind of like darkly fascinating to me to think about this movie that is not like the marketing. I feel like the marketing was really like, oh my God, Civil War, aren't you afraid? Everyone come watch this movie. And the movie is more like a road trip movie about photojournalists that's like, but like I don't know what it's trying to say about photojournalists or photojournalism besides like war is bad.
Or what it's trying to say about anything. Yeah.
Or what it's trying to say about anything. Like, we're bad. It's good to take photos, I guess, except sometimes not.
But they're also like, yeah, kind of just like not happy, dead inside individuals. Yeah.
Right. Like, was it worth it to take the picture? I don't know. I don't know that the movie knows. Anyway, so it's just a really fascinating watch from a director who directed one of my favorite movies, Ex Machina. There was something I was like, I gotta watch this latest one just to see exactly where this trajectory has led to. And it was not disappointing. It was more like exactly what I was expecting. And so ultimately just fascinating that this movie exists. Good performances. Kirsten Dunst is really good.
Kaylee Spaney.
Yeah, like there's a lot of good in this movie. I just don't even have the faintest clue of what it's trying to add up to. And I don't know if that's partially it trying to not offend or step on any toes whatsoever, such that you can remain objective to absorb what it's trying to say. But if that's the case, then again, at the end of the day, it's not saying anything.
It's like if you're going to provocatively make a movie about a new American Civil War and yet try to also not say anything about America, it's like,
which it does. It pulls off pretty well of like, yeah, I don't really know what side I'm supposed to be rooting for, which lets me focus on the thing that you really want me to focus on, which is what? Which is missing, which is nothing, which is frustrating.
Living in a country that is at war sucks.
Right. Newsflash.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to belabor that, but like, because what we just talked about last episode and this episode was that my personal favorite thing is credits roll in a movie, and I'm like, I want to go back on the ride. Like, I want to think about it. I want to recontextualize things. So again, David Lynch, being John Malkovich, No Country for Old Men, all these movies that just make me go like, I feel like I'm just getting started with my relationship with this movie when the credits rolled the first time, and I can't wait to keep thinking about it. Civil War, I saw with my partner and two of our friends, and we went like for a drink afterwards, and we were just kind of we tried to talk about it, and we just there was like nothing to say. There was nothing there to kind of grab onto. And I'm sure people have written essays about it and all that kind of stuff, but it's my personal feeling of like, you didn't make me want to continue engaging with this movie. You made me want it to be over and then never think about it again, And that's totally subjective, but I feel like it's a good example of the opposite of the thing I've just been talking about for the last two episodes. That is the thing that I love the most about movies that I love.
And you mentioned Ex Machina, Michael, and I felt the good thing after Ex Machina when I first watched it. It was like, oh, I want to watch it again. I want to think about like what that all meant. And I agree. Civil War did not give me that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, good work was done. Good performances. Some really cool sequences. I just wish any of it meant anything. So anyway, Civil War. Hope we're all doing great on
How's the future, listeners?
Yes, exactly.
How's it going over there on the other side?
We're still in October over here.
This is October, baby.
Right.
The Dodgers just won.
won.
It's beautiful.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Anything.
Maybe Nick Offerman is president when you guys are doing this.
Wow. Like I said, we will be back next week to talk about Labyrinth. This has been our conversation about being John Malkovich. We want to say a big thank you, as always, to the patrons that make this show possible. If you want to help us make more episodes, get perks like ad-free episodes and patron-exclusive episodes, all that is over on the Beyond Screenplay Patreon. The link is in the show notes. Thank you to our producer, Vince Major. Thank you to our editors, Mike Wuerth and Vicky Lewis, and the whole Nebula Studios team. I'm Michael Tucker. I've been joined today by Trisha Rand, Brian Bittner, and Alex Calleros. All of our Twitter handles are in the show notes. Send us a tweet and say hi, and we will see you in the next episode for our discussion of Labyrinth.
Yay!
Malkovich.
Malkovich.
Malkovich.